if you look at a person, a scientist by the name of Gilbert Godfrey, I believe it is, there's a movie you can watch called The Fingerprint of God. It's a movie that was made about 30 years ago, and until this day, no scientist can reject it. In this movie, he's a scientist, he's not a rabbi, he's not a priest, he doesn't have any religious agenda, but he's a scientist that actually proved that all of the dating methods that say that the world is 1 billion years old, 2 billion years old, 1 million years old, 60 billion years, whatever number you want to throw, or anybody wants to throw, because every scientist has a different theory. No one has any facts. Theory does not mean fact. Theory means a theoretical guess, educated guess, if you will. They are putting certain facts together with certain likelihoods, certain possibilities together, and they're arriving at some type of thesis that this is a likely possibility. The problem is, different scientists use different factors, different scientists use different methods, and therefore you'll have different scientists have different numbers. One guy says the world is only 13.4 billion years old. The other one says, no, it's much younger. It's only 5 billion years old. Another one says 250 million. Another one says 700 million. And everybody has a different number. Now, if you really think about it, most of you guys are still teenagers or close to it. You're 20, let's say. Now, maybe a little older, don't take offense to it. I know young people take offense to being called young. But the point I'm trying to make is that just think about how much happened in your life over the last year. If you think about it for a second, lots of stuff happened in the last year. You went here, you went there, you went here, you went there, you did this, you did that. Lots of stuff happened in 1 year. Lots of stuff. 10 years, even more stuff. 20 years that you're alive, it's almost like your whole life. Now, it's a lot of time, right? So when you realize how much stuff happened in the world over the last 20 years, it's even more impressive. It's extraordinary. It's amazing. I mean, you realize that when you guys were babies, there was no such thing as iPhones. Like from this generation, there's no such thing as iPhones, because that's the way the world you grew up in. But really, 20 years ago, there was no iPhones. In fact, internet was still in its infancy. So just think about how much of a change has happened in the last 20 years. So to just throw around billions of years like it's worthless, 250 million, 300 million, 3 billion, literally shows people that they don't know what they're talking about, because they're just throwing away years just because if it doesn't mean anything. Now, this same scientist showed that all of these methods are wrong. And the reason why is because all of them depend on specific factors to stay the same. Meaning, whether it's carbon dating, or using the atomic method, or using all types of other theories that they have, or studies that they have, every one of these things depends on certain things being static. For example, the temperature of the atmosphere has to remain static for all of them. Now, why? Because if, let's say, for example, I have 2 eggs in front of you. Okay, I have 2 eggs. Imagine 2 eggs in my hands. And now I'm going to tell you which one is older than the other. Now, one of them looks black, the other one is white. You're going to tell me, of course, the one that's white is probably younger, the one that's black is probably older. That's a logic, that's rational, because what you can see is what you get. Problem is that you're wrong. Why? This one, this black one, I put it next to a bonfire. I didn't put it inside the bonfire, I put it next to a bonfire. So, little by little, the charcoal and the smoke and everything else affected it, so it looks older. The other one, I put it in the fridge. So the conditions for both of these eggs were drastically different. So even though they both look drastically different as far as how old they are, in fact, they're the same, or perhaps even the black one is younger. Same concept when you rely on an atmosphere staying the same. They're all relying on the atmosphere staying the same, and one thing that we do have a scientific fact about is that the atmosphere has not stayed the same. One scientific fact we do have is that the atmosphere has increased by at least 1 to 3 degrees. 1 to 3 degrees throughout the last several thousand years, which means that unless you can pinpoint exactly when it changed that 1 to 3 degrees, it is impossible for you to do any type of dating whatsoever, because you are not comparing apples to apples. And that's why many times when people have put these different types of dating methods to the test, they actually try to make it fail. Why? Because to make it fail is really testing it, not to make it pass when you don't have an agenda. So what did they do? They gave him two types of bones. And they said, okay, tell me the dating. One, they said, oh, this is 60 million years old. And the other one says, no, this is only 50 million years old. Said, well, this one is actually 30 days old, and this one is only 60 years old. They're both monkeys. So how come you thought they're 60 million years old? Because the dating system is depending on certain factors. And it's already expecting that whatever you bring it is assuming a lot of things that are literally theory and not fact. So point being is that even though scientists say that the world is very, very old, it doesn't mean it's right. We have to always remember that theory is not fact, but it also doesn't necessarily negate the Torah. Meaning that even if the world was 13.4 billion years old, nothing would change anyway. And the reason why is because our Torah doesn't start from, like Adam HaRishon didn't start from 13 billion years ago. We start counting the 5779, 5,779 years from the day he was born. So everything that happened beforehand is irrelevant. It doesn't change whether there's Shabbat or not. It doesn't change whether there's kashrut or not. The laws of the Torah, the history of the Torah, and everything in the Torah doesn't change regardless of how old the actual world is. And when you look into the Zohar, you'll also find that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did create 6 other worlds before this one. 6 other worlds before this one. They're not the same as this one, but nonetheless, he did create other worlds before this one. So this world is not the only thing that ever existed, but it is the last thing to exist because this is the last world.